Ladies and gentlemen, the play's the thing. With your host, Judy Sleed. And special guest, Syd Berman. Now here's Judy.
Love me in Paris.
Thank you, Lee, for another wonderful introduction. And I have a very interesting guest here, Syd Berman. How are you, Syd?
I'm very well, thank you for asking me.
Well, I'm so excited to hear all about you because I've seen you around for almost a year and I don't know anything about this fabulous career you have. So let's just get started. You were in the music business at one time?
Oh, I sure was.
Where were you born?
I was born in London.
Wow.
I was born September the 8th, 1917, in the middle of an air raid. World War I was on, and my mother was in labor at the Middlesex Hospital, and at 4 a.m. they dropped a bomb 2 blocks from the hospital, and my mother delivered me. So my sister, who was 2 years or 3 years older than me, later on she used to chide me with a joke that I came in with a bomb, and that's why I'm not like everybody else, you know.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because I thought you remembered that.
Oh, no way. No, I started off in music. I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you if it weren't for Louis Armstrong.
Louis
Yes,
Armstrong.
let me explain. My father was a theatrical tailor in London, and he got orders to make 15 pairs of green flannel slacks for the Louis Armstrong Orchestra, who arrived in London in 1935. And he took me along to a rehearsal. I was 14 years old, and he took me along so I would write down the measurements while he was measuring each individual musician. And they had broken in the middle of a rehearsal, and they were having a relaxed moment, and Armstrong left his trumpet on the piano. And I was a very cheeky, inquisitive kid, you know. So I walked up and I made eye contact with him, and I said, you know, yeah. And he said, yes, you can look at it. So I picked up the trumpet, and I said to him, how do you get a note out of this? And he said, just imagine you've got something on your lip and spit it out. So I picked up the trumpet, put it to my lips, and I spat it out. And I played a middle G very loud, da-da! And he shouted out, get that kid a trumpet, to my father. Well, on the way home, I said, Dad, my birthday's coming up in 1 month. I think I'd like to have a trumpet. He tried to talk me out of it, but in the end, he gave way. And so finally, I got a trumpet. And I was 15 when I started on the trumpet. I took some lessons, a few lessons, maybe a dozen lessons, you might say. I started playing on my own. And I practiced and practiced at it, and I played. And then when I got to college, eventually, I formed an orchestra in college. There were a lot of musicians there, and I had a large band, about 12 or 14 pieces. And that's when I met Duke Ellington. My father, again, this time he phoned me up in college. He got a hold of me, and he said, if you want to come down, I've got a rehearsal date I've got to go to and measure Duke Ellington's orchestra for a series of pants, and he said, you can come there and you can come and help me and you'll meet them. So I met Duke Ellington, and he gave me a small CD, a little round CD of Mood Indigo. Mood Indigo. I took that CD with me to college, and you know, I was able to transcribe from listening to it play. I wrote out the parts. There are 3 main parts, a clarinet, the trombone and a trumpet, muted, playing that melody. And I wrote it out, and we played it the first time. We played it in Oxford University, where I went to college.
Well, that shows you had a lot of talent.
When I got out of college, I was making more money already in music than my father. Would you believe it? Right away. I was 20 years old, and I got work on the BBC. I was on every Friday night from 10:30 to midnight with an orchestra. Not my orchestra, but I was in that orchestra. And I was in bands all the time. And then when World War II broke out, I was actually, when it broke out, I had my own band on a ship that ran between London and Yokohama. And that ship was the Royal Pindi, which was the flagship of the P&O line. And it was taken over in 1939 when the war broke out by the British Navy and turned into an armed merchantman. And it was sunk, the first time it went out, it was sunk in the Atlantic by the German pocket battleship that got out and sank it. And I was on that the trip before it went down.
Oh, that's good. I'm curious that you said that you thank Louis Armstrong to start you. Did you ever meet him again and tell him?
No, I didn't meet him again. I was living very near him. It was in Jackson Heights. He had a house, it's still there on, I forget the street, but it's right about, it's right near Jackson Heights. And I went by there many times. I thought I ought to go in, but I never said anything to him. But I was absolutely transfixed by his playing, and I copied his style as much as I could. And then when I came over to America, how I got to America is another story. I came here first during the war. I was in the Australian Merchant Marine, and I was a purser on a food ship bringing food from New Zealand to Liverpool. And I got torpedoed. Our ship got torpedoed off Cape Hatteras, April the 11th, 1942. And I was picked up by the North Carolina, the battleship out of Charleston, and taken back to Charleston Naval Base. And from there, we came up to New York. When I got to New York, I was so excited. The first time to get to New York after, I was so excited. I went up to the Musicians Union, and I talked them into giving me a card. You're supposed to be a resident, but in wartime, they made an exception. They gave me a card in 1942. And very shortly, I was playing club dates in New York, and I stayed here for 2 years, and I played with Lester Lanning's orchestra and with Maya Davis. These are pickup bands that play weddings and things like that, you know. And then I was finally had to go back because I wasn't legally here. You know, I was picked up, but I didn't come in legally, and I had no legal status. So I went back to England, and I joined USO, the United Services Organization. I took an entertainment unit out from America. We went to the north of England where the US Army Air Force bomber bases were, and we played shows for the bomber bases, for the airmen, the US airmen. And I was in charge of a unit for USO, and I had people like Jimmy Cagney come around with me, Paulette Goddard, Adolphe Menjou, other film stars. They used to send a star out every few weeks to join the show, to head up the show. And I had a band, and that's what I was in charge of, the music.
I wanted to ask you, you said from that one CD, first of all, I'm surprised they had a CD at that time, but you picked out 3 arrangements.
It wasn't a CD. Well, it was a small vinyl. That's why I made a misspoken.
Yeah.
Not a CD.
So anyway, and you said you only took about a dozen lessons, and you learned all this by yourself?
Yeah, I taught myself to orchestrate as well. I took books out from the library on orchestration, and I practiced it. I wrote a few things out, heard what they sounded like. I could do that in college because we had a band of guys. We were all into. We kept rehearsing and playing each other's music.
Not everybody could pick that up. That
no,
means
well,
you have.
I have one gift. I am perfect pitch, and I have an ear. I can play anything. I mean, the moment I hear it, I can sit down and harmonize the melody.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I thought I had a perfect pitch.
Yeah. So
well, I could pick out melodies, but I can't do harmony and arrangement.
Well, when I came over here. Well, so after the war, I applied. After the war, I got a job on the Queen Mary as orchestra leader, and I had 3 orchestras under my direction on the Queen Mary. This was in 1947 when they refurbished the ship after it was a troop ship. They put it back into passenger service. They did it all over inside, and I was in charge of the particular orchestra that played in the nightclub on the Starlight roof. And in that locale, all the people who were big shots, hoi polloi, politicians, film stars, always showed up there. And we started to play around 10 p.m., played till 2 a.m. And I had an opportunity to meet some remarkable people in that job.
Well, I guess they were happy to have you.
Well, I had a good orchestra there,
Yes.
very fine band.
Yeah.
And And when we got to the end of that, after 6 months on there, I decided to come back to America with a permanent resident visa. So I went to the consulate in Grosvenor Square in London, and while I was on the Queen Mary, I was saving my money up in a bank in New York, in the Guarantee Trust Company on Lower Broadway, opposite the offices of the Cunard Line, where I used to get my money. So I banked money there, and when I went to Grosvenor Square to the consul, he said to me, "How are you going to support yourself?" And I showed in the bank book I had money in the bank, so he gave me a visa. And he said, "You must have enough money to get a ticket back." So I said, "Okay, here I got enough money for that." And so I came ashore in December '47 with a permanent resident visa, and by Christmas, I was already got a job. I was working on the Waldorf on the Starlight Roof.
Wow.
With an orchestra there. And,
you know, you mentioned that you came in 1947. That's when I came here.
Yes. After that, I got work doing orchestration, and then I hooked up with NBC, the show of shows, Sid Caesar, Imogene Coca. In 1949, they were trying out the material that they were going to use when it opened the show in 1950. A show, Saturday night, 8 o'clock on NBC. They were trying out the material on live audiences that came up for the summer at these places, at this resort. It's called the Camp Tamament in the Poconos, right? And so I was up there with the orchestra, and my wife happened to come up for the weekend with her sister, and I went down to have a dance with one of the girls. I picked my wife up there, and that's how we met. So I met my wife then. That's how I met her.
You were talking about vinyl. When we were talking about some music to listen to, I bet many people don't know what a vinyl is. So can we...
Yes, this is the kind of thing that was standard for music. This is a vinyl record, and all the jazz and all the classical music is all on vinyl records, long before tape was ever discovered for music
this is a 78.
This is a 78. 78 revolutions.
RPM.
And then it went to 33 and a half. They got larger ones, you see. They carried more music in them. Right?
So did you write, and you write songs?
Yes, there's one of mine over there.
Which one? And
well,
you said you could sing one of them?
Yes, I'll sing one for you.
Which one? This one?
No, I'll sing that one with the blue, that one there. This is a I don't want to take up a lot of your time. So
no,
this is a fast number. Let me explain this.
Let's take a picture of this. What this really looks like. This is when 60 cents. Wow. Yeah,
60 cents. This is Pedro's Pretty Sister, and it's a fast Latin song. I really don't even need the music in front of me since it's my work, so I'll sing it for you.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Pedro's pretty sister is the gal who had each mister going crazy in Havana. None could say they kissed her. You see, Pedro's pretty sister has the most elusive manner. Pedro didn't mind them when he woke each day to find them hanging round his hacienda. 'Cause any big parade was very good for trade, 'cause Pedro was the peanut vendor. I heard her say, "Ah, senor, you'll adore my little peanuts." And since that day, Pedro's sister started driving me nuts. When she whispered me amigo, it did something to my ego. How could I, poor guy, resist her? So for a kiss I tarried, and that's how I got married to Pedro's pretty sister.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you remembered all the words?
Well, I can't forget my own words, can I?
Well, I do. I forget.
Well, there's another song there that wasn't such a great hit, but this song, the Hurdy-Gurdy Man, this song ran for, I got royalties on this song for maybe 15 or more years.
This
no,
one? This is the Hurdy.
This is the Hurdy-Gurdy Man, yeah. This was the song. And this, I got royalties because this was the theme song used by an artist called the Hurdy-Gurdy Man on Radio Athlone in Dublin, Ireland. And every time he came on, he played my song. The music played, coming on and going off. And so I got a royalty every time he appeared. And he was on the show for years and years and years. And so I got royalties for that song.
Is one of them a theme song for the Show of Shows?
Oh, the Show of Shows, no. I was scoring orchestra music for a dancer. There was a dancer on that program called Bill Callahan, and I scored his routine. He had a
You're kidding me.
two-minute
I
dance
know
routine.
Bill Callahan.
Yeah, and he did a 2-minute dance routine in that show, and it was my job to score something for him. And I used to work it up with him. He used to, we used to go to a studio, and he would do what he was going to do, and I'd try to get the orchestration that would fit his dance, you know. So I scored music for him.
So, and where did you learn to play the piano?
Oh well, I started on the piano when I was about 5 or 6. I'm not sure.
Oh.
And I got lessons on the piano for about 2 or 3 or 4 years. And then I gave up taking lessons because I had to study for my bar mitzvah. And it took all my time, so I couldn't have the piano teacher anymore. And I never went back to the piano after that, but I remembered everything. So, and then when I was orchestrating or scoring, I needed the piano. I played chords to sound out how they sound, you know. And I had a wonderful piano at home. I had a 6-foot concert grand piano, but we couldn't bring it out here. I have a smaller house, so we sold it before we moved. I've been living in Bridgehampton 13 years. Before that, I was 36 years in Montclair, New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
New Jersey. Well, it's not so busy there like in New York.
Oh, yeah, it was a wonderful place. I brought my family up there with tiny kids when we moved there. You
So
know.
how many children do you
I
have?
have 2 sons and I have 2 granddaughters.
And where do you-
I'm married to my wife. We will be married 59 years in February.
In
59
February, what
years.
day? You remember February?
Do I remember what?
What day?
Oh, yeah. We were married on Lincoln's birthday, 1950, February the 12th, 1950. And we went to Key West on our honeymoon. I drove all the way from New York to Key West.
Wow.
We spent 3 weeks in Florida on our honeymoon. And I have one granddaughter, 27 and one 22. I think that's the age. I'm not absolutely sure. And that's my son is.
Where does he live, your son?
My
Where
son.
does he live?
Oh, my son lives in Montclair, in West Orange. He was in Montclair, and he moved to West Orange, New Jersey. He's a physician, but he doesn't practice medicine.
So what does he do?
He's a consultant on medical software.
Oh.
That's what, he's a computer guru. You understand what I mean? He's into it to the extent that he designs computer programs for people, you know.
That's interesting.
And
the other
my
son?
My other son has a master's degree from Michigan State as a rehabilitation counselor. That's his work, rehabilitation counseling. But
Where
right
does he
now,
live?
he's in Alexandria, Virginia. He's married, but he has no children.
So this is where the life takes us.
That's right.
From-
Which way the ball bounces, as they say. But I'm still writing music, oddly enough.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
The last things I'm doing, I've written music for the synagogue.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I've written settings for 1 or 2 well-known prayers, musical settings, which the cantor sings.
Oh, she has a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
So I was going to. You told me before that you quit the music business because somebody was complaining.
Well, my wife didn't like me traveling around, and besides which, the work was very spasmodic. You could make a lot of money or no money at all. And then my wife was working, and then when she got pregnant with our first child, she quit, and I had to find some real steady income. So I got a job with a stockbroker on Wall Street.
A stockbroker.
And I was selling securities over the phone. They only hired me because I had a very clipped British accent, which they thought went very well with a stock salesman, so I was selling securities. And then I sold life insurance And from that, I got into public relations. I became a writer doing public relations work, and finally into advertising. And I was in the advertising business. I was a copywriter, then I became a copy supervisor, and then eventually I had my own agency on Madison Avenue with 2 partners. And we specialized in medical accounts. By medical accounts, I mean we did the advertising for the drug companies that advertised in the medical journals. The Journal of the American Medical Association, the New England Journal of Medicine. So we specialized in that kind of advertising, and we did very well with it. And
well, you're very enterprising.
yeah, then
Anything you touch, you turn into gold.
I don't know. Some things fail, but some things succeed. My magnum opus was this. I quit the advertising agency I had with my 2 partners. I had 2 partners, and I created a booklet for doctors, which I sold to Syd Berman, the drug company, and it was a big success. And I only gave them the exclusive in the United States. I kept the world rights to myself, and I sold it to other drug companies in different countries. And when it finally ran out of it, I had over 1 million copies sold worldwide. And this booklet was a book called Physifax, and it contained all the reference material a doctor needed quickly to carry around in his pocket. And it was a big hit. They bought 50,000 copies from me every year for 10 years, Syd Berman. And
You published
then
it yourself?
Then they dropped it, and that was the end of it. But I had a good run. 10 years, I had a good run with that. And that was the last big thing I did. I've been doing editing on the web. I edit other people's things on the web.
On the web?
Yeah, for money, but they won't pay any, you know. The last thing I did for a publisher, I was asking him $100 a page because I had to edit out a manuscript, and they wouldn't pay that kind of money, and it takes time.
I know.
So I couldn't make anything with it. But I can edit. I edit everybody's stuff, you know. Because I go right back to my beginning. I graduated with an honours degree in English from Magdalen College in Oxford, and my work as an editor, I can edit anybody's stuff. Technical material, medical material, whatever it is.
So you talked about your dad, your father, he was a tailor.
Oh, yeah.
And what about your mother?
Well, they came over to England. My father was born in Kiev in Ukraine, and he was a graduate of Kiev University. And in 1895, there was an unsuccessful Russian revolution which the government put down. Eventually, it succeeded in 1917. But when they put it down in 1895, they rounded up. It was the students were the catalyst for that unsuccessful revolution. So they rounded up all the students they could grab, you know, and they shoved them into the military, get rid of them, you know. And my father got out of that. He escaped that by stowing away on a ship. He got to St. Petersburg. He stowed away on a ship, which happened to be an English ship, and they found him and they turned him over to the police in London, and he got out in London. That's how he got to London. And my mother came over with her older sister who was having a baby and was married to an Englishman, and she came over to help her with the new baby and met my father, and they got married in England. That's it. And they started off 2 people in one room. My mother rented a sewing machine, and my father had a large 14-pound iron, which he heated up on a gas stove. And they took out work as outworkers, and my father used to press open the seams of the clothing, and my mother on the machine would sew it up. And from that, they wound up with a business with 80 employees, you know, in time, you know. They went through 2 wars, and they were wonderful people.
Oh, well,
my mother died at 94, but my
came?
father passed away at 72. So,
well, I was curious because you are so talented, but your mother and father were very
I'm really
talented. Do you have any siblings?
The kind of guy who's extemporizes. I extemporize all through my life. Whatever I figure I extemporize, I make something out of it, you know. And so that's what I've been doing.
Do you have any siblings?
They passed away.
You have?
I had, yes. I had a brother who was 5 years older than me and a sister who was 2 years older than me. And my sister died.
Well, when they were alive, what did they do? Did they come to America also?
Oh, no, they were never in America. They came on visit, but they never. My brother was an officer of the company Marks and Spencer, the big chain stores in Britain, Marks and Spencer.
And your sister?
And my sister, she was a buyer at one of the big fancy department stores in London. She was the buyer of ladies' foundation garments.
Well, Syd, I think I'm going to have to ask you to come back because we ran out of time and you have so much more.
Well, I'll look forward to that. I'll tell you more when we meet again.
It's such a treat to listen to you because, as I said, I see you around and then I had no idea what an exciting life you had.
Well, thank you for having me. I kind of imposed on you by singing a song.
No, you did not. So I want to thank everybody here in the studio for helping me and all the underwriters. And this is the Hamptons. And over here, you could see me 4 times a week. And then in New York, if you tune into Pub MNN, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Tuesday nights, 5:30. Goodbye, everybody. See you
Goodbye.
next time. I think
Love me, love